Date someone who will sit down and say let's fix this instead of being a child and ignoring you. My ex more or less ghosted me a little more than a year ago after he started the "have things been weird lately" conversation. We were together for almost 2 years. Still hurts and I don't feel like I got closure. Honk. Closure is a myth honestly. No matter how much an ex explained their reasoning to me, I never knew the whole truth because it's impossible to be in another person's brain. And I never felt better. The only thing that made me feel better was time. Closure helped for me. Personally, even though the relationship ended, we still talked as friends. We used the time post breakup to discuss what went wrong and where we can improve ourselves for the next love of lives. It really depends on how responsible the two individuals are and how they approach the situation. Whenever there's something bugging us about the past, we bring it up and talk about it. It helps with reflecting and getting an answer as to not feel guilty and whatnot about some stuff. This happened to me Sunday. He just sat there and was like, well, I give up. I realized I've spent weeks trying to fix our relationship and he kept telling me he was busy and we'd work on it later. I sent him multiple sources of material to read and he didn't open one of them. It seems I just cared more than he did. What was wrong and what did you want him to do to fix it? He wouldn't communicate with me or explain to me what he wanted from me. He's autistic, so it made things a bit more difficult. He liked to tell me on Monday he was coming to visit me on the weekend, so I'd cancel all plans, and then he'd cancel Friday night. This would happen every week. He'd complain that I'd get upset and want him around, but I was his sole emotional support, and I was dealing with stuff too, but he always told me it was in my head. He didn't understand my emotions. He'd make me wait around for him places for hours, and then look at me like, why am I upset? Don't get me wrong, I love him, and I knew he loved me in his odd way, but I needed him to think of me as his partner, and that we had to work in things together, not just me trying to fix it all. But his biggest effort he did was a movie night on Skype, which I'd been begging for since last year, which he decided to clean his room during and not really pay attention. Then when I got sick this weekend, pneumonia, he didn't bring me meds like I asked and made me drive separate to get stuff. He said he had 5 minutes to see me. I think sometimes you need time for yourself, but I totally agree with you. I love when people choose to fix things. BC, it's easier to do nothing. Worth things are never easy. Time alone is a must in a relationship. I don't want to be somebody's everything 24/7. Get a hobby or join the PTA lol. But honesty is the top answer up on the board. If you are gonna stick it out and be a contributor with your partner, do it. Sadly, there are still a lot of people out there who are immature. Emo. The last 2 guys I've dated, one ignored me / would take days to reply, until I eventually cracked it and said it was over. The other one just vanished into thin air rather than being honest. Yep, same here. It's easier to ghost, but in the long run, I don't think anyone can feel good about themselves for acting that way. Being honest is always the way to go. Seriously, my last 2 relationships I went in telling them I need communication, and if something is wrong tell me so we can figure it out together. Both times I was sidelined by them wanting to break up over issues we could have talked about and dealt with, but instead they decided to sit on it and let it simmer to a boiling point and throw it all away. If you find someone who is willing to talk things through, you found a keeper. People are generally cowards these days. My own wife emptied her house while I was at work. Never said a word. I came home and even the dog was gone. Everything was gone. My life as I knew it ended. She couldn't even give me and us the decency to sit down and talk things out. We had some issues, but I never knew anything was bad enough to end our marriage, let alone the way she did. She simply sucker punched me with brass knuckles. Metaphorically speaking, of course. People who comport themselves that way should be exiled to Siberia. Agreed. And sorry that happened. That's one of the worst cases I've heard. It gets worse. My oldest friend of 20 years plus, and also the best man at my wedding, helped her load the moving truck. Wait for it though. I'm the asshole here. Lol, isn't that grand? What did she tell him you did? I'm experiencing that now. And let me tell you, coming to realize you love someone more than they love you hurts. He's out enjoying himself while I lay in bed crying. Where's the sense in that? Also date someone who will give you time to put your thoughts together. This gave me hope. Maybe my next relationship will not be awful. Maybe it will be with someone who wants to be honest and work together. I was always the one that wanted to talk. They would respond with denial, gaslighting, blame shifting, justifying, other logical fallacies that meant they never had to take responsibility. But I needed to apologize for wanting the truth, wanting transparency, wanting constructive conversations. You described what I went through like you were the stenographer in my relationship. Thanks for posting this. It's crazy how many people can't simply communicate their feelings to their partners. It seems like something so basic, but so many people have difficulties with it. I feel like communicating in general is hard for people, so in relationships it's just worse. We all as a society need to do better when it comes to communicating. Just imagine how much better the world would be if we all could sit down and actually speak productively. Have any examples? Any examples? As in stories of people not communicating productively? Or are you asking me if I have any ideas for we as a society to communicate better? I don't understand the question. Sorry. Stories. Yup. My ex has the characteristics of dismissive avoidant attachment style, so the 2 times I took issue with a couple of behaviors over the course of a year, he immediately broke up with me both times. By text. No discussion. No nothing. LTR with a man who had avoidance issues due to his childhood. Raised by wolves basically. I had no idea at that time the amount of baggage this guy was dragging around and just how damaged he really was. We never had a fight until after we'd moved in together. So first time, he just shuts himself in the bedroom and ignores me completely. I know he's angry with me, but I have no clue as to why. So me, being me, I just stomp on in there and tell him he better put his big boy panties on and tell me what's bothering him, cause I'm not going away until he does. I go on to tell him that he's not his dad and I'm not his mom and the world will not end if he criticizes me and tells me what I've done to upset him. It took 3 days, but he finally says what the problem is. That was the beginning of 16 years. It ended badly, but at least we learned how to communicate during a disagreement. They say one of the biggest red flags for a relationship is when the person suddenly stops trying to solve the issue that was a big deal before. It means they're checking out. I tried and tried. I cried myself to sleep agonizing. Then when I finally ran out of steam and gave up, that's when he decides to come around. Then he's like, "We're not even gonna talk about it?" Sorry dude. I tried to talk about it for months. I miss him, but I don't miss us. Agree with you on that one. I miss her but not us. I'm going through a breakup right now. He needed time to figure himself out, and we'd revisit it after the semester is over, and he still loves me, but we have issues we probably can't fix. So while I stick around for him to decide if he still loves me, he gets off without responsibility over anything at all. I needed to read this. Thank you. You are your own person. You don't have to wait for him. You are not in a relationship with him. One of the men I truly thought I'd end up with proved to me that I needed a partner who was actually willing to talk. I always tried but nothing came of it. So now I just stick with this quote whenever I think about each of our efforts, or lack thereof. If they were meant to be in your life, nothing could make them leave. If they weren't, nothing in the world could make them stay. Lang Lev. That is a well appreciated quote. Thank you. Lang has a lot of good poems about love and breakups. I got that particular quote from her book Sea of Strangers. One important thing to consider here is that you and your so may have different communication styles / needs. I need to talk everything out immediately. My wife needs time to understand how she feels before she can talk. This was a source of significant pain and turbulence early in our relationship. We'd have a fight, and I'd want to talk. She'd clam up. Had we met when we were younger and less patient, we were both in our late 20s when we met, I'm pretty confident it would have ended, which would have been very sad, because working through this aspect of our relationship with her is one of the things I'm most proud of. Trust is key, and it's the foundation of real love. Obviously, There are people who are just not good for each other, or even more importantly, not ready. A real relationship takes patience, ability to be vulnerable and wrong, and seeing the other person, even and especially in times when you feel hurt by them. Each person brings plenty of hurt to the table. You each need to be able to sort that hurt out together, and that's a lifelong process, but it's also a partnership. Did this. Got ghosted dirty. Hilarious juxtaposition on this sub. One place people advocating to fix relationships. Others all advice I leave relationships ASAP. My last relationship wasn't a good one for me. It was a lot of ups and downs. But when the going got tough I would attempt to sit down and with him and try and talk things out. I put up with a lot from him because I guess I truly did wish it would worked out. By a lot I'm talking things like him being on dating applications, talking to other people daily, me finding out about it and wanting to find out why instead of just ending things, him lying about it, and a lot of other things consistently. Anyways, the biggest red flag for me should been him only wanting to talk about things while he was high, which would just be him telling me he loved me over and over. If they don't want to talk about working things out, or they can only do it while intoxicated, don't waste too much time on it. Some people aren't worth the constant uphill fight. Thank you for this. I needed to hear this so badly today. Happy to help poop burb. Honk. Definitely get the feeling sometimes, like I'm the only one fighting. I communicate too much I feel, yet he bottles it all inside. Then bam. Suddenly he's miserable and our world is collapsing. I'm working on myself, so I don't have to be afraid to be alone anymore. Same boat here. My ex and I just ended things. But this was our constant issue. I would wear my heart on my sleeve, and he would keep quiet and harbor on things, compiling a bunch of small stuff into one big grievance. I'm still trying to come to terms with the fact that I shouldn't have to be afraid to be emotional in front of my partner for fear that he will see it as an inconvenience. Thank you for sharing. Truly, it oddly makes me feel less alone reading this thread. I tend to lurk and never feel strongly enough to post. My friends are supportive, but they insist I just talk it out with him. That's where the fear comes in, like you mentioned. Excuse me, person on the internet. Could you please stop describing the downfall of my last relationship perfectly, honk? Yup. It's really sad that you can't even tell if this person will cooperate or not. I was in 5-year-old relationship. Either we are doing fine. We had problems but nothing that we couldn't fix. One day after silly argument she decided that it's over and that she doesn't love me anymore. She started "It's obvious you will never change. You run out of time," but never gave me a hint that she expects something different from relationship. Each time I asked her if she is happy with me she said of course. The same applied to question if she loved me. We never had silent days. Both of us showed interest in the relationship until the breakup. After she told me it's over, I was devastated. I wasn't ready for such information. Nothing hinted it. I don't understand what type of person prefers to look for other apparent and moving out instead of sitting down and telling you their expectations and working things out. 5 years of emotional attachment wasted. It's so annoying. Something similar just happened to me. It's strange, but it's also all too real. Hey, my comment is 4-year-old, and after all those years I can tell you one thing, it gets better. It really does. Time will heal any wounds your partner did. It will suck at the beginning, but later on you will simply stop to care about what happened between you two. Drive. Cox had it right all along. https://yao2b/i90u8jpe. This is interesting. I know I'm flawed. I sometimes do the ignoring, but I more do it, so I have time to think and do it for another reason. When I'm in a bit of relationship, I'm including friends and familial relationships, not just romantic. I give and contribute tons and want to talk. But when it gets too much, sometimes I shut down. I know it's not an appropriate game, but in a sense I'm also trying to remind the other person that I shouldn't be the only one giving and contributing all the time. Kind of a taste without me. Some people shrug their shoulders and don't care, and then the relationship kind of just falls away. I mean, we may stay friends, but the closeness can be lost. Then there are the people who realize my silence as me being mad and thinking, and they tend to approach me and want to sit down and work it out. I love and value those people, and the op is advocating for these people. Sometimes, I'm just not ready. However, that's why I'm being quiet. I'm still mulling it over in my head and trying to figure out what I want. Usually, if the relationship is important to me, I'll reach out and make an effort. I'm just kind of slow to the draw at times. I have a relationship with one person in particular, and he always reaches out and wants to work things out. I love him to death. He doesn't think very highly of himself, which upsets me, but he's kind of amazing, and his doing this really makes me have mad respect. I need to work on it. I do my best to communicate my needs with him. I think there's more than one way, beyond what the op is suggesting. Honk honk. In this position right now. 6 years and little to change in how he deals with or handles emotions or talking. Been 4 days with no talking to each other, and a deep chasm of space between us.